Hi, it's Sharon from Grace's neighbor Sharon. I hope you enjoy the video. I want to tell you a little bit about FUNCIL dot markers before we get into the projects. So the influencer manager of FUNCILS reached out to me and asked me if I would do a promotion for their chalk markers, but then they also wanted to send me these dot markers. Dot markers are quick dry, acid-free, non-toxic, and child-safe. There's 10 markers in the box, and I think it's like a 50-page activity book. So on the back there, they're showing you directions, which seems silly for markers, but really it's helpful because I wouldn't think to press it down to get the ink flowing every once in a while. I would think the ink is always going to be there, but that's not the case with paint markers. They're a little bit different than regular markers. So let's open up the box. We're going to see colors like sunny yellow, candy pink, purple nebula, glittery gold, and then red, green, blue, brown, and black. So there's the little book, and see how it's got the little circles on it, which I thought was kind of cute. So if you have a toddler, they're just going to grab that marker and probably go bang, bang, bang. But, you know, they can practice getting it in circles. And I'll show you, you can make dots or you can rub it across the paper. And here I am trying it for the first time, and I'm touching the tip because it reminds me of a bingo dabber, but it's not sponge. It's got the marker technology, but in a large form. So, okay, that works. Let's try another color. Grab my pink because I'm a pink lover. Pink's my favorite color. Aqua is a close second, but pink for Easter for sure. So let's do a butterfly. Notice I dab to get it going, and then I'm touching the circles, and the ink is coming out really nice. See how I dragged it across, and I'm getting good coverage. So I decided to try it on a few craft things. So I tried it on an MDF board. It didn't look good at all. I'm trying it now on canvas, and it actually looks really nice. The blue is a little bit subtle. Here's the pink. But all in all, you could do that. Now I'm coloring a tumbling tower block with orange. And this is really nice because the wood is nice and smooth. And I think that's the key here. You can color beads, and I will color beads in this video, but if you drag the marker tip across the hole, it'll shred it a little bit. They asked me to do 2 separate posts for the chalk markers and the dot markers, so the chalk markers will be in my next video. Let's get crafting. Project number 1. Nose Kiss Bunnies Hanging Tags. Tags are from Dollar Tree. The bunnies came off a previous sign that I worked on, and I'll be using my black dot marker from FUNCILS, as well as some scrap fabric and some pink scrap ribbon, and some pink ribbon from Dollar Tree. I'm starting off by removing the border on both sides. They're exactly the same. This border was pretty easy to remove using my Cricut Pokey tool and just a palette, like a paint palette. And the paper was also really easy to take off. So I went ahead and removed the border and the paper from both tags and flipped it over. And now I'm applying a coat of light gray paint on the back of this one, which is now the front. I set that aside to dry, and I thought about using the border, so I painted the border as well, but I do end up not using it. For now, I'm going to put this old pink shabby chic vinyl on the second tag, and I'm just going to cover up the side where I pulled the paper off, and then use one of the knives I got at Dollar Tree to trim off the edges. And then I come in with a sanding block afterwards. That's one of my favorite ways to remove the edges. So 2 perfect tags. Now I'm taking the pink dot marker and I'm coloring the beads. And while this has a cool result, I'm not sure I will recommend it because it shredded the top of the marker a little bit. So you want a smoother surface, because I was running it over the top of the bead where the hole was, and so that kind of ate into the top part of the marker. So I made this stencil in Cricut, and oh my goodness, it took forever. Like, I had to cut out so much here. I weeded the letters, and then I used the transfer tape to put the stencil part down, which would normally be what you're pulling up. Only this time we're putting it down. And I had a little bunny for the A to make the hole in the A, and I couldn't find it. So I actually just kind of patchworked some vinyl in there to get the A's looking normal. And then I come in with the dot marker, and I actually tried this off camera with the different stencils to make sure it works on an adhesive stencil, not on the regular stencils that you just hold down. So I went top to bottom, pulled the color down, and then I went back over them and darkened them up a little bit, each individual letter, and then I'm pulling off the stencil. My first dot marker reveal, and gosh, turned out pretty good, huh? Since it's washable, I just came in with the baby wipe and got that the top and bottom there. Now, I couldn't help myself. Everyone, this is a sneak peek at the FUNCIL chalk marker. I was attempting to make the edges more crisp, but it ended up looking more like an outline. So I went with it and did each letter. And I kind of went back and forth, like doing the edges and wiping it off. But in the end, I just quit. Like, there's a little bit of smudgy, and I could come in with paint, but I didn't. But you could if you wanted to, if you chose to recreate this. So these little bunnies, one I had to flip over and remove the glue, so they would be facing each other. And I just used a combination of Dollar Tree super glue and hot glue. And then I made my little darning needle with some floral wire and pulled those painted beads onto the hanging cord. Now I'm taking that scrap ribbon and making a bow tie for our boy bunny. And then I have this really pretty sheer fabric. And don't mind that stapler, it was just there to hold the bunny head down because it was lifting up a bit. But I'm putting the sheer ribbon shoelace bow on the bunny's ears, so it's like a hair bow. And then I have this really narrow pink ribbon. I'll do another shoelace bow and put that on top. And don't they look pretty? So now we're going to glue the two tags together using super glue and hot glue, and I just use that stick there as a guide to where I wanted it to go. Ended up not using those sticks. Those were the border on the old signs. To finish the project, I used some super glue to set the hanging cords down into, and then that was vertical. And then horizontally, I put down a bead of hot glue and put a little piece of fabric on top. And it came out so pretty, and you'll get a better look at it in the final reveal. Project number 2. Bunny on a Fence Easter sign. So we have the napkin from eBay. We have the Easter word from a 3-pack I purchased at Dollar Tree. The sign I purchased at Dollar Tree. And we're just going to get the rooster, or the chicken. We're going to get the chicken off of that sign. I just use a utility knife and slide it underneath, and it pops right off. And I'll save that for a future sign. And look at this. This does not happen very often. The tag peeled off, no problem, with very little adhesive left behind. Now I'm just keeping track of where the slats are, the holes, like where the lines are going to be for when I paint, because I want to do them different colors, just like in the original sign. So I do some measuring and everything. And then when I'm happy with it, I use the FUNCIL dot marker in brown, And I just do that to identify the two dark slats on the fence. And you'll see me tapping it and then rubbing it. Tapping it releases the ink, and then rubbing it like spreads it, I guess you would say. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this gray chalk paint over the whole thing. And I just kind of wanted to see if the brown would show through, and it kind of does. Actually showed through more when the paint started to dry. So I'm working on those little banners right now. I actually painted over the welcome banner. It's got like a slippery finish, so I knew it wouldn't totally cover it. And then I painted over the other banner after I had pulled the paper off. So I'm doing them a little different. I'm coming in with some Chalk Couture white paste to do a little like distressing and texturing on the banner. And again, I'm just keeping track of where everything's supposed to be, because I want to make sure I get as much as the bunny in as possible. So I basically want like the whole thing. All right, once I marked off where the napkin's going to be, I grabbed my Mod Podge and I did a nice thin but even coat. I don't like to glob it on too much, because that's just, it's not good. There's my dot marker and my Easter sign, and Easter word, and I believe this is the best application for these dot markers. This is a flat wood sign. I shake up the marker, and then I sort of pounce and rub. So I'm getting the ink out there, and then I'm rubbing it over the word. And I love it. Love it. Okay. Yes. So we've established that I love it. Now, I'm being sneaky again. This is those chalk markers that I'm going to tell you about in my next video. Perfect application for the chalk markers. I could very well see the black letters underneath, and I went over them with a brown chalk marker from FUNCILS. And again, they asked me to do 2 separate posts for the markers. That's why I'm not telling you about the chalk marker until the next video. So I'm separating the napkin from the bottom ply, and then I'm taking the part with the image and going around it with a wet paintbrush so that it's easy to tear off. I also do the wet paintbrush on the edge and just do a little feathering, because this helps it stick so much better. It also looks better, but this one's kind of going to be not super visible, but it's just a great thing to do. It just makes everything stick so smoothly. I can run my hand over it, you see, and I know that it's on there good, and I don't have to iron it anymore. And by the way, that's a Hippo heat press I use to iron that. Now that I'm confident it's on there really well, I take that dot marker again, and I color the tops and bottoms of those fence slats, and I use my pokey tool from Cricut to just like scrape a line in instead of using a pencil or something. I actually scraped it in. Then I'm coming back with the Chalk Couture white paste and texturing the lighter parts of the fence. And that worked really well. I was really happy with how it came out. So I'm going to reattach the banners, again using my hot glue wood glue combination. And I also used the same combination to get Easter on the bottom banner there. Then I grabbed that green ribbon that you saw at the beginning, and I'm making the awareness shape, scrunching it up, tying it in the back with some, this is baker's twine I used on this one, I think. And then trimming the tails very short so that it doesn't cover up the word. And I actually had to glue it on the either side of the middle because of the way the fence was there. But it came out really good. It looks great. I'm just going to cover up the back with some vinyl. Better look at the final reveal. Project number 3. Pretty in Pink Easter Blessings Bunny. We'll be using this dot marker in pink, Magic Fly acrylic paint in 2 different kinds of pink. The Dollar Tree beads that used to be in the heart shape, and then Dollar Tree circle sign, and Dollar Tree window cling or window decal. Starting with, I got a head start on the beads, and it took a little bit, but it's a very efficient way to color them, and I'm not rubbing it over the hole in the bead like I was in previous projects, so it actually came out pretty good without tearing up the tip of the marker there. You don't have to do this, but the beads were kind of loose, so I cut off the end and then curled up the sharp piece into itself, so there was no sharp ends. I mixed together those two pink paints, but when I started applying it, it was like, oh, that's just kind of dark, and I knew it was going to be behind there's lots of clear spots on the window clings, so rather than waiting for the dark pink to dry and then coming in and repainting it, I just got in there when it was still damp, and just with just pale pink, see, I kind of spiraled it on there and then spread it up and then left it right on the parchment paper and set it aside to dry. And that's the nice thing about the parchment paper, is you can just leave it. However, sometimes you'll get these little marks, these little things on the edges, and that's just because the paint on the parchment paper dried too, and it was stuck to your sign. I do apologize for the jumpiness of the video. I had some issues with recording at a lower than normal speed, and this was as fast as I could get it. I have no idea what happened, but it corrects itself, but it's towards the end. Anyways, so just going with the flow here. I thought the bunny was going to be the star of the show. I know Brenda from Rustic and Lace takes her window clings and fussy cuts them, gets rid of most of the plastic on the edges. However, I am not as patient as Brenda, and so I just kind of trimmed where it seemed like there was a lot, like between the ears, between the legs, and where the flowers and the head are. And then when I was happy with it, I played around with the placement. I realized there's a lot of dead space, so I peeled off some florals in the Easter Blessings sentiment. However, the sentiment was circled with a floral wreath that just wasn't going to fit. But I did like the idea of having the sentiment on there, so I trimmed up the wreath and made it more of like a little curved border instead. I left everything where it was in the dry fit and then turned it over in place and applied some Mod Podge. Then with the bunny, I just, I patted it, kind of patted and kind of wiped it down with a dry paper towel to make sure there was no extra Mod Podge underneath. Then with the bunny, I left it in place and I did the bottom with the Mod Podge and then folded it back down and did the rest of it in the same way and tapped it and wiped it with the paper towel. I was getting a little bit impatient here. I did apply some Mod Podge to the actual sign, and of course there was some spillover that I had to wipe down. So I went back to applying it on the window cling and then folding it down or flipping it over. But I was happy with the placement because you can move it around a little bit, and I actually did. Once I was happy with the placement, I attached the beads, but I did so off camera because, again, I was just having weird camera issues. So I just used my hot glue, wood glue method to get the beads down there. I did my bow the same way I always do. I put some pale ribbon in the middle there, applied the finishing spray, and better look at the final reveal.